What's up, everybody? Steven here from ResiBrands. Another episode for you of my journey to 1,000 franchisees. Before we talk about today's topic, though, please like and subscribe. I'd like to get to 1,000 subs before I get to 1,000 franchisees. How do you like my table? That's pretty nice. And so what we're going to be putting on the table of today's topic, so to speak, is some questions from Reddit, specifically from curious entrepreneurs. And these ones are franchise related, and I'm just going to do my best to answer them. How did everybody get into franchising? Okay. People get into franchising in a lot of different ways. Some people, they work with like a franchise consultant who will then kind of show them different brands that they might be interested. They'll kind of interview you, ask you questions about what you like, what you're passionate about, and then they'll present some options to you. Some people became franchisees because they worked at the company. A great example is Chick-fil-A. A lot of people actually that's exclusively how they do it. They have their employees become franchisees. And there's others that do some things very similar. At That One Painter, we are doing a mix. Some people met us at like a trade show. Other people came to us through franchise consultants. And then we have employees that have become franchisees as well. And so if you don't have a high net worth or you don't have a lot of cash on hand, there are ways to potentially get in with a loan through like the SBA. Actually, there are entire lenders who focus just on franchising and helping people become franchisees. You got to have a decent credit score, but you don't necessarily have to have that much cash. Normally you need to have about 20% of the loan amount in cash. So if you don't have a ton of cash, that's one option to look at. And the other one is get a job at a franchise and see if you can work your way up. And that might be a way as well. Get a job at Chick-fil-A, even though it's pretty hard to become a franchise owner there. Even in That One Painter, some of our employees even at other locations, not just the original Austin location, have now become franchisees. So there's definitely ways to do it. Also, there's all sorts of really cool ways of getting the money through. Even like if you're a homeowner, you could do like a HELOC. It's a way to basically get some of that money from your equity in your home. There are lots and lots of ways to get the cash if you don't have it. We had one guy, he had a couple BMWs that he had, and extra cars that he had been working on, and he sold those to become a franchisee. So there's always a way. I don't think that cash is as big of a problem as people think it is. Obviously, you need money to buy a franchise, but there are ways to get it. So money all aside, you do want to pick a brand that you're passionate about. But let me kind of rephrase that even a bit more. Is you need to first become passionate about business, because if you're talking about becoming a franchisee, what you're really saying is that you want to become an entrepreneur, you want to run a business. And so yes, you need to pick a brand that you're passionate about. I'm really big on that. But what you first need to do is make sure you're actually passionate about business and becoming an entrepreneur, because it is very, very different than being a manager or being an employee. It can be a lot more rewarding, but it can also be a lot more stressful, and you need to be prepared for that. So make sure that you're reading a lot of things about business, that you're studying entrepreneurship, that you're watching videos from entrepreneurs and getting inspired. And once you really have a lot of passion for business, then yes, you need to pick a brand that you actually want to be a part of. You might be surprised that a lot of our franchisees didn't think that they would ever be in the painting industry, but they fell in love with our brand and our culture and our people and the stories they heard from our franchisees. And so they got into the painting industry with That One Painter because they fell in love with the brand and opportunity more than they were maybe in love with home services or painting trade. So it's really important, I would say, are you passionate about business? Make sure that you have that at least. Okay, so this question's from like a franchisor or somebody who maybe has a business and is wanting to start franchising out their business to franchisees. So there's kind of two parts of that question. In the franchise world, franchise development, it kind of is like code for franchise sales and getting people ready for their launch. That's kind of what franchise development is. And then you have the actual operation, coaching, and support part of franchising. So I'll just touch both really quickly. When it comes to selling franchises, you're gonna wanna work with consultants consultants, you're going to want to go to like franchise shows, and you can also try ads and stuff like that. But I'll tell you this, in the very beginning, if you don't have any franchisees yet, nobody wants to buy your franchise. And it's actually a common problem in franchising, is a lot of people go out and they say, hey, I'm going to franchise my business. They get their legal documents ready, they get everything ready, and then 68% of franchises don't sell a single franchise in their first 2 years. And the reason for that is because they didn't actually have anybody lined up beforehand, and they thought that if they just said I'm franchising, that people would come to them. And the truth is, your first 5 to 10 franchisees you need to recruit. You need to personally go out and find those franchisees. It could be friends, family members, employees, whoever it is. That first 5 to 10, you have to go find them. You need to have them lined up, ready to buy before you even announce that you're going to franchise. So you're actually kind of low key pulling people in, casting vision to them, saying, I'm going to franchise. Would you buy if I do? And have it lined up so that you're not stuck where many people are, which is they announce that they're franchising. They didn't have anybody lined up, and 2 years later, they still have no franchisees, which is very, very common. Now, another important part, and I would say even more important, is once you do sell one, do you actually have a system? And I think this is what the question was alluding to. Do you actually have a system in place that will make the franchisee successful? Maybe not quite as successful as you were, but they need to be able to at least get close. And ultimately, you should actually hope that your franchisees could one day even surpass the success of your original location or unit. So here is what I see a lot of people do wrong, which is first they think, well, I did it, so anybody can do it. No, you're a unique person. Everybody's a unique person. And it was also your brand and your idea and all of that. And so you might have had a certain hustle or drive to get to where you were that not everybody else will have quite at the same level. So you can't just assume that just because you did it, everybody else can do it. What you need to do is you need to actually think through everything that you do in your business and write down the systems and train and create training videos and stuff, and actually lay it out in a way that not just somebody who worked as hard as you or somebody who's as charismatic as you, but your average person, could they implement your system and be successful? Because a business model that is franchisable is one that is created for the average person, an average person with average sales ability, average leadership, average operational skills, average organization. Can that person implement your model and be successful? And if the answer is no, then you don't have a franchise system. What you have is your own system that works for you, but you have not yet built out the support system, the structure, the SOPs, the training for other people to implement it. And so you need to start taking everything that's in your head. This is one of the first things that I did. As soon as I thought I wanted to start franchising, actually, I had already done some of this beforehand, but you need to start writing manuals. I had written some manuals for painters and things like that before I decided to franchise. But once I started wanting to franchise, everything I thought about business, everything I thought about my company and sales and all that kind of stuff, I just started to kind of brain vomit and just put it on paper. And as we developed more and more systems, we're constantly adding to the training, and we're trying to make it as simple as possible so that anybody who is of average skill level can implement it. But that's only possible if you actually create the system for it. Okay, this is an amazing question. And it was one of the things that I think I was obsessed with, because I don't just try to assume that people want to buy my franchise, especially in the beginning. I try to put myself in the buyer's shoes and think through what questions are they going to be asking? What questions would I ask if I was being asked to be the first franchisee? And those are the sort of things that I would try to put together before I even offered franchises. And I really thought about this a lot. And that I came to the conclusion that, one, I needed to put my own money where my mouth was. So right before we offered franchises, 2 months before, I launched a second corporate location. And the reason I did that was, and I even got advice that I shouldn't, but I kept coming back to this idea that I'm about to ask somebody to be my first franchisee, but I haven't even done this a second time myself yet. And so a few months before we were going to launch the franchise, I started to really be bothered by the fact that I hadn't done it a second time and I hadn't tested the systems all the way. And so what I did as a franchisor was I hired an employee and I said, I'm going to treat you like a franchisee. I'm never going to visit your location, even though now I actually do visit franchise locations sometimes. But I told him, I still to this day have never visited that location. I said, I'm not going to visit your location. I'm never going to visit your location. I'm not going to talk to your customers. I'm going to hand you some trainings that I prepared for franchisees, and you're going to go implement it. And I'm going to pay you to do this because I'm testing my system. And I was like, basically, you were being hired to be a guinea pig. And that's literally what I did. And so I did practice my systems. I did practice it on somebody rather than having a franchisee be my crash test dummy or my guinea pig. I'd rather like kind of experiment on somebody who's not putting their own savings and their own money on the line. And so I did that, and I immediately launched. I launched it a couple months before we even started talking or announcing franchising. And by the time we sold our first franchise, that location had been in operation for 3 months and was already having really good revenue. And I think that actually helped us sell franchises. Now, this donut one, you're saying they have 2 corporate locations. That's a good sign. It means that it wasn't a one-off. It wasn't just they got lucky. It wasn't just they had a lot of relationships in that one part of town or that one city, and that's why it was successful. They're showing that they were successful enough to then take their profits and invest into another location, and that they actually believe in their own product. So I do think the fact that there's 2 corporate locations is a good sign. However, if you're going to be the first franchisee, that's still a new relationship. It's not an employee. It's very different. And so this potential franchisor doesn't have any experience on the franchisee relationship side yet. And you don't know how quickly they're going to grow or not. So are you going to be the one franchisee or a few while they have their corporate locations? Could they come to the conclusion that franchising is not really for us and we're going to go pursue our corporate locations and start more of those? There are a lot of risks when joining a new franchise, and I was kind of aware of this when we started That One Painter, and so I wanted to line up as many people as I possibly could. And one of the things we did was we offered a discount to all of the first 10 franchisees who signed up with us. And I said, this discount is because I'm gonna experiment on you. Like, I'm gonna practice. We're gonna figure this out together. And I did that because I was aware that it was riskier. So I gave them a discount because it was riskier to join us. And so I am very thankful for my first 10 franchisees who came on, and in that first 6 months or so, they all signed. And we developed our systems, we got feedback from them, and then we improved our systems. And all those franchisees, they all look at the systems we currently have, and they tell all the new franchisees, you guys are lucky because it wasn't quite this good when we started. And so just be prepared that if you are first or second or 10th in a franchise, you probably are going to be a little bit they'll be learning as they're working with you. We're starting new brands now through ResiBrands like Garage Up, and we're working on a third one. But we are taking all of the systems from That One Painter that have already proven to work, and then we're just implementing them to different home services. So it's less risky now for a franchisee to come because it's systems that have already been tested through That One Painter. So again, I'm not opposed to people joining a new franchise system. I think people need to, if it's the right one, and you like the founder, or you like the CEO or whoever's doing it, then join it. But if you're asking me what's safer, it's safer to join one that's already established for sure. Choosing which franchise to open, choosing which franchise to buy is a super important question. And anybody who's looked at franchising probably has been a little bit overwhelmed because there are 4,000 options in North America, which sounds like a lot, but it's only 4,000. But again, that is a lot of choices. Well, the truth is that about 2/3 of them don't even have 20 locations. And if they have been really small for a really long time, my personal recommendation would probably be only buy it if you really like the founder and you really like the brand. There's nothing wrong with being a part of an emerging brand. We were an emerging brand. I'm so thankful for all the people that joined, but just make sure that you really love it, really like the brand, because it may not grow very quickly, and you're going to be very tightly knit with a small group. So just make sure that you like the other franchisees, talk to them, that you like the founder, that you like the brand, and if so, join a small one. Now, if you're joining a bigger one, the problem becomes some of them are huge and they're kind of sold out all your territories, and so then you're kind of stuck between what do I want to choose and what's available. Here at the end of the day, you want to buy into a brand that's growing, because healthy things grow. You want to buy into a brand where they can show you that they can teach you sales, and they can help you in marketing so that you can grow your business. And you want to buy into a brand where the franchisees themselves are saying, I am having a good experience. I'm making my investment back. I'm making money. Those are the kind of things that you want to hear from the franchisees. So sometimes there's brands out there that seem really great or is in an industry you really like, but you need to find out, are your franchisees happy? Are people making money? Do you have sales training? Do you have good marketing? Because if you don't have good marketing and there's no sales training, it means it's all on you to figure it out. And that's basically like you running your own business without a franchise. You may not need it. If you're going into a franchise, they have proven systems, they have proven marketing, they have proven sales training, they have a brand that's growing, they have a brand that customers want. That's why you get into a franchise versus doing it yourself. And the other reason you get into franchising is you do it for the community so that you're not alone. Business ownership can be one of the loneliest places in the world, because you could be hanging out with friends and family and all that kind of stuff, but your business is struggling, or you're not sure how you're going to afford payroll. Things like that. And so when you have a community of support from the franchisor and other franchisees, that's one of the biggest reasons for joining a franchise as well. So that's why I go back to, you got to make sure you like the people you're signing up with, and like the other franchisees, and like the franchisor and their support team, because that's going to be your community. That's going to be who's helping you. Okay. I hope that was really helpful to you guys. I really enjoyed kind of going through those questions and answering them. If you have any opinions different than mine, please comment. If you liked what I said and you want to learn more, please comment. And if you think that somebody would benefit from this video, maybe they're thinking about franchising or something like that, share this video with them. And as always, please like and subscribe. Thanks so much.